What is an ideal society? In my opinion, the only criterion for measuring an ideal society is the principle of considering issues from the perspective of all humanity to maximize human values rather than from the viewpoint of any particular individual, group, or generation. The goal is to ensure the survival and happiness of the majority of people, as well as to let them obtain other human values. This reminds me of something. A member of Save Human Action organization gave a wrong response to a specific group affected by a disease when they asked us for help. The member stated that it was not within the scope of our consideration as we adhere to the maximum value principle and consider issues from the perspective of all humanity. Without doubt, this response is incorrect. If the theory established by me was like this, it would be so terrible. My theory and principles are not limited to any specific individual, group, or generation. How to understand that? If a dictator does everything according to his own will, for his own survival and happiness, this would be unacceptable. A political party that only considers its own interests and disregards the interests of others is not acceptable. Similarly, if people from a particular era only consider themselves but not future generations, this is also unacceptable. Furthermore, there are people who commit murder and arson. Can you guarantee their interests? Similarly, those who steal also have interests to be protected. Can you guarantee that? So is the case with corrupt officials. Can you guarantee their interests? These unjust interests should not be protected, as they do not comply with the maximum value principle. Over the years, I have established 3 principles. All of my research is conducted under the guidance of them. I think the 3 principles should also guide the practice of human society. Namely, the first principle is the maximum value principle, which involves considering issues from the perspective of all humanity and seeking to maximize human values. And we take realizing the maximum value principle as a goal while designing fair and reasonable social systems, constructing various social frameworks, and regulating social behavior. This is a just cause. The principle is referred to as the justice principle. The third principle is the far-reaching principle, which means to consider the future and destiny of humanity from the perspective of the fundamental and long-term interests of human beings as a whole. At the same time, we must also pragmatically address every issue related to human beings at present. As I mentioned earlier, it is unjust for a dictator to prioritize their own interests over the interests of others, because this cannot realize the maximum value. Similarly, when a political party gains power, it should not ignore the interests of others. A country cannot invade other countries for its own benefit. It is unjust to build one's own happiness on the basis of the suffering of others, and to establish the interests of the minority on the basis of the suffering of the majority. This is not in line with the maximum value principle. Designing social systems and constructing social structures to accomplish such unjust actions and regulating social behavior is not in accordance with the justice principle. If we only care about our contemporary people, extracting all the iron, copper, and oil resources, leaving behind resource-depleted cities, this goes against the far-reaching principle. What kind of situation are you placing our descendants in? How are they supposed to live? They are all human beings, just from a different generation. So, what kind of social environment can guarantee the survival, happiness, and other values of most people? I believe that only a peaceful, friendly, equally wealthy, and non-competitive social environment can guarantee the realization of maximum value of humanity. People can have more sense of security in survival and feel happier. In a peaceful and friendly environment, everyone gets along harmoniously, and the society is stable, with fewer wars or terrorist killings. In an equally wealthy society, people tend to feel happier. Why? That's because happiness comes from comparison. When everyone else is richer than me and I am so poor, I would feel lonely, lost, and have no sense of happiness. Thus, a society that is equal and wealthy can provide a stronger sense of happiness for most people. However, no social system can guarantee that everyone feels happy. For example, there are murderers and arsonists in a society. The more people they kill, the happier they become. Likewise, the more a corrupt official embezzles, the happier they are. Can you guarantee their interests? If they are happy, the vast majority of people will become unhappy. We only need to ensure the happiness and well-being of the vast majority of people. Only an equally wealthy society can achieve this goal. Furthermore, can you guarantee people's happiness in a fiercely competitive society? We are currently in such a society, starting from kindergarten to primary, secondary, high school, university, and beyond, with continuous education and knowledge updates after graduation. Everyone is living a hard life. We work hard all day, but get little in return because the competition is too intense. Therefore, an ideal society cannot be realized in the current form of society. Today's society is a national society where many countries coexist and there is competition between nations, which is often manifested through the means of war and slaughter. Therefore, no one can ignore this kind of competition, as the losers may face the possibility of a total annihilation. Therefore, there is a competitive relationship between countries. In order to maintain its advantage and win in the competition, a country will encourage competition among the enterprises, as only enterprises that are competitive in the international market can create wealth. When enterprises create wealth, the country has money. Enterprises are the basic executive department of creating wealth in society. Only when enterprises create wealth can the country have money to develop military power technology and enhance its comprehensive competitiveness. So, for businesses to compete and gain an advantage in the competition, they need to encourage employee competition. In the field of business, we often say that our employees must have a wolf-like nature, otherwise they will be defeated. This is the reason. As you can see, the country is in a competitive relationship, and the country needs to encourage business competition, and businesses need to encourage employees to compete. Therefore, the whole society is in a state of intense competition. People may obtain more material wealth, but they live a very difficult and tiring life without much happiness. This is determined by the characteristics of national society, and it is impossible to be changed. If a country gives up the competition, it will find itself in a difficult or unfavorable circumstance. Just think about it. Who unified China? It was the Qin state. Qin was a poor and barren place in western China. At that time, compared to other states like Chu, Qi, and Zhao, Qin was poorer and had a lower level of civilization. However, it was precisely this barren land of Qin that unified China. Therefore, during the spring and autumn period and the warring states period, when it came to the state of Qin, people always refer to it as the state of wolves and tigers. It had to have the wolf nature. Also, there was a period of high civilization in Chinese history, the Song Dynasty. The economic and cultural level of the Song Dynasty were both very high. Many essayists and poets emerged during that time. Everyone knows Tang poetry and song lyrics. Song lyrics emerged during the Song Dynasty. Song Dynasty also boasts calligraphy and painting, and the level of civilization was very high. However, the Song dynasty was frequently bullied by neighboring countries with lower cultural levels and poorer economies, such as the Khitans and Jurchens, and lost a lot of territory as a result. Therefore, a national society cannot sincerely transform itself into a non-competitive society. It must be a highly competitive society, and the country cannot sincerely encourage social equality and prosperity. There is a magnifying effect on science and technology now, and countries need to develop science and technology. The gap between large and small enterprises is great, with large enterprises being wealthy enough to compete with countries. If you are the owner of a large high-tech enterprise, your personal assets may reach tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of dollars, while many people can only live an ordinary life. In addition, for a national society, each country is inherently unevenly prosperous, with countries like Luxembourg, Switzerland, and the United States having per capita GDP of tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, while poor African countries have per capita GDP of only a few $100s. The gap is huge in itself. Therefore, a peaceful, friendly, and evenly wealthy, non-competitive society can only be realized when humanity achieves great unification. If great unification is achieved and competition between countries is eliminated, there would be only one world government that represents the interests of humanity. It will consider the problem globally as a whole and promote the use of existing mature and secure science and technology worldwide. This would be a process of providing plenty of food, clothing, and a fair distribution of wealth. A unified society would encourage peaceful, friendly, equitable, and non-competitive social values. So, this peaceful and friendly attitude determines the stability of the unified society. It would not encourage everyone to compete as before. Instead, it would focus on encouraging the development of small and medium-sized enterprises and labor-intensive enterprises, and consider employment issues rather than emphasizing the need for these enterprises to create a large amount of wealth. However, wealth creation is still necessary, because without it, people would not have enough to wear or eat, and people would feel no sense of happiness. A national society must ensure people's sense of happiness and the acquisition of sufficient wealth. We humans have a characteristic called infinite desire. Desires are infinite. Even if one is wealthy, he may still feel that his wealth is far from enough. Even if one has power, he may still feel that his power is insufficient. The unified society does not encourage people with such a mentality to do things, or encourage such people to do things. It encourages the development of small and medium-sized enterprises and labor-intensive enterprises. Therefore, the unified society is not only a society that can ensure human beings will not be extinct due to scientific and technological advancement, but also a society that can ensure a full sense of happiness for people. It is also an ideal society for mankind.
Join Civil Human Action Organization and devote ourselves to the mighty torrent of saving human beings.